Conservation Authority, and I'm out in the Meadoway. I'm down at Daventry Road, and this is the Meadoway. And today I'm going to be talking a little bit about the management of this area. I'm going to take a look at this area and see how we need to manage it. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of the plants that are coming up and some of the different management options that we have. And we're going to look at last year's standing cover, and we're going to see what the importance that it has for wildlife. So I'll just turn it around here and we'll show you a little bit about what we got here. So here's the Daventry Road, and then over here we have our prairie, which is our meadow. And because of Corvid, we have our nice Corvid-19 sign, and we've got our Meadoway sign here that talks a little bit about what we're doing here. And we have our no mow, so that people know not to mow in this area. And some of the practices that we have are I'm wearing steel-toed shoes, so when I go in there, there's nothing that I'm stepping on. We're doing our social distancing, or making sure we wear our protective equipment. And I also have Chris over here, so he's just making sure that people stay away the 2 meters. So let's just take a look at the meadow. So we have a beautiful meadow here. It doesn't look too exciting right now. All you can see mostly is the brown cover from last year. But down at the base, you can start to see all these lumps of green. And so it's looking really nice. They're starting to come up and pop out of the meadow now. So we're going to take a look at that. There's one thing on the way by here that I wanted to show you. There's a lot of garbage being dumped into the meadow, and that's really not good. So please don't dump into the meadow. We've got wildlife in here. They'll eat the garbage, they'll get sick and they'll die. People will get injured and sick from this garbage. So please just do not dump garbage in the Meadoway. Don't dump garbage at all. So let's look over here. So I'm walking towards the meadow, and a little bit into it. This is one of our mown buffers. The city's maintaining the mown buffers, and we're doing the meadow component, and the city's doing these shrub nodes. So these shrubs are a variety of species that don't grow very tall because we're in a power corridor, and we don't want the shrubs and the trees interfering with the wires. So there's no trees growing here, and if they do grow, we have to take them out. So what we've got here in the shrub node is fragrant sumac. So it's a really nice species. If you rub it a little bit and smell it, it's really got a really nice smell, and the different butterflies like it. I don't know if you can see right now, there's not too many right now, but before the whole thing was just buzzing with all sorts of different pollinators. So the pollinators really like these species. And they also produce berries in the fall, and the birds eat the berries. And I'm just looking for another species that we've got over here, which I really like, and a lot of people like as well. We have a patch of red raspberry here. So you can see it's got a little bit of a thorn. It's not too sharp, but the birds really like that. So they eat a lot of the berries, and they're very tasty, and even I like eating them. Just remember to know your species before you pick anything, and so that you know that they're edible. So over here, we'll walk into the meadow a little bit, and as you can see, we've got a lot of standing cover, and that standing cover is useful for the birds. And you can hear there's a red-winged blackbird up there. He's up on the pole a little bit, and he's calling. So they're probably nesting in here somewhere. And so they use this different material, the old dead material, for their nests, and they build their nests in there. And there's all sorts of different birds that are in here. And some of the species on the edge here, I found a nice cup plant. Look at that. So this is cup plant, and it's really a really beautiful wildflower, and it grows up, it's even taller than me. It grows up to about 12 feet tall, and it's really robust. It's got a really robust stem. You can see that here. You can see how thick the stem is here, and so it's also hollow, so insects can go inside and overwinter in the dead material. But the interesting thing about cup plant is is this. I don't think there's any water in it right now, but you can see how the leaves come together, and because they seal, there actually is usually water in the bottom of these, and different animals can take a little drink of water, the butterflies and the different birds. So it actually has it's holding the water for itself, but it's also providing a source of water in the meadow for different species. And we'll just walk into here a little bit, and I just wanted to show you. So we have different grass species in here. Like this is switchgrass. I'm not sure if you can see that too well, but it's very light and airy, and the seed would have been at the end of this. And then so we have some that is standing cover, and then some of it down here is fallen down. And so part of our management is coming in here, and every 3 to 4 years we mow it down. And the reason we do that is because typically a meadow is burned. So the management practice is burning, but as I said, we're in a power corridor, and we're also in the middle of the city. So burning is not really an option here. And so what we do is we come in, we mow. It takes down the standing cover from in the early spring before any of the birds have arrived, and it cuts up a lot of this mulch that's on the ground, and then it exposes the soil again, so you can actually see a bit more soil, and the vegetation can come back. And then the very next year, this is the last year it was mown, and this is the second year after the mown, so we still have a lot of standing cover after the second year. And so there's a lot of habitat for the wildlife to nest in and be in here. But then looking down at the ground, you can see it starts to get really thick. So it's actually creating a bit of a mulch, and over time it'll actually suppress the different wildflowers that are in here if we don't do a mow cycle or a burn. But we can't do a burn, so we're doing mowing. And so what we have here is a whole bunch of different stems, and because they're hollow inside, some of these, I can open one up. Well, this one's got a little bit of a light pith in the middle there, so the insects can dig into that, and they can nest inside here. They can just dig that out because it's very light, and they can overwinter in there. And so they'll either put their eggs in there, or they'll actually tunnel in there, and they'll overwinter themselves as adults and come out in the spring. So this vegetative material is actually really important for overwintering creatures. And down here, you can see here's the soil down here. So what happens is a lot of different creatures lay their eggs in the soil, and they also overwinter as adults in the soil, or as larvae in the soil. And what happens is this mulch layer is over top of it, and so that's protecting them through the winter. So without a little bit of a mulch cover, then they have a harder time, and if it's really a deep freeze, then they might freeze down there. So this is actually protecting the soil. And you get all sorts of bees and different pollinators that nest in the soil, and they create their homes in there, and also in the stems. So let's look at some of the other species we've got here. We've got big blue stem. It's still got a little tiny bit of seed at the end. It's also called turkey foot. And see, we got a little bit of seed there. You're never sure if it's actually viable at the end of the season, though, because the animals are actually pretty smart, and they'll actually take all the viable seed, the ones that have food inside of them, and they'll eat it. And so we just throw that down. You can see down the base here. Here's some of the grasses coming back, some of our native grasses, and then the mulch that's fallen down from the year before. And then let's look around here a little bit. Oh, we've got another species here. There's some oxeye, which is an excellent species. It's growing fast now. Last week I was out here and it was half that height. And you can see we have the last year's flowers. So it has a really nice yellow flower, quite big, about yay big. And then this is last year's seed heads. And so I don't know if we still got some, because sometimes the birds are very efficient. But here, there's one seed still in there. And I don't know if we can get any more, but because the birds are very efficient, they love these seeds. So there's a little bit of seed. You can see them, they're black there. So the birds, they'll eat the seeds. The pollinators will pollinate the flowers. And wildlife will use the stems for overwintering and for making their nests. So overall, excellent species. Now we have species like over here, munching things a little bit, but this is Canada goldenrod. I'm not sure if we can see a gull around here, but it actually has like a little golf ball on the stem sometimes, and there's an insect inside of there. I don't see one right now, but you can see this is Canada goldenrod, and our asters and our goldenrods are actually really important in the fall because they're one of the last flowering species. So this will have a nice yellow flower in the fall, and everybody knows it. And actually it's not actually the species that's causing everybody hay fever. There's actually a green flowering plant that's not very showy that people just don't notice that's actually causing all your hay fever. This actually has a big heavy pollen that's sticky, so it doesn't float around, whereas the ragweed floats around and gets up your nose and makes you sneeze. So this is really important for the fall because the monarchs and the different pollinators that are storing up energy for the fall need that energy so that they can overwinter, or like the monarchs, they can make a really long migration. So we're just looking around and, oh, look at this. We even have a little hole here. This could be looks like it could be a rabbit, or it could even be a fox. It's fairly large size. So I'm not going to stay too close to that because we don't want to disturb it too much. But you can just see that there's all sorts of wildlife out here starting to make homes out here. This is only 4 years old, so finding these different things is really important. Creating this habitat within Toronto. And over here you can see we've got, this is one of our management issues, is different trees starting to grow in here. So part of the management is mowing this and reducing the trees because we don't want those going up to the wire and then causing problems. And here's another species right here. Here's the seed head for wild bergamot. So I don't know if we'll get any seed out of these ones either, but it's always interesting to see. No, we didn't get any out of that one. I guess the birds are pretty efficient. Anyway, it's just these tiny little seeds are there. It's a very small seed, but if you smell this, it actually has a really nice smell, and you can use it in a tea. So here down at the bottom, you can see where the new growth is. So this is the new growth, and it also, if you smell it, has a really nice smell, and it has a really beautiful mauve flower later on, and the hummingbirds and different pollinators really like that. Let's see what else we can find. Well, and here we have this is going to be a tall sunflower, so it's short right now, but this is going to shoot right up. It'll grow up to be about 10 feet tall, and it'll have lots of flowers, and the things like goldfinches really like the seed of these sunflowers. So that's a really nice one to have in here as well. Just taking a look at that. And what else do we have in here? So yeah, there's all sorts of different prairie grasses, and you can see how they form. Just it's a bit of a random pattern in here, but it's once it starts flowering, I mean, everything will come together. So just looking at the meadow, it's really nice just being out here, listening to the wildlife. It's really nice that we have 16 kilometers that we're working with, because it's very rare that you get such a long strip of habitat within the city like this. And here's another species that I want you to look at. This is one of our management concerns. So here we have oxeye, and here we're just starting to flower is dog strangling vine. So you can see the dog strangling vine is a little more lanky than our oxeye, and what we have is, for identification, opposite leaves. They're a little bit shiny right now, And if you look on the top, you can see they kind of go back and forth as well. So again, they're very lanky, and it's got a long pointy tip, and the edge is smooth. Whereas our oxeye here also has opposite leaves, and it also has the same pattern of leaves, but the leaves are much wider, and it's toothed on the edge of the leaf, and it's not shiny, it's kind of rough. So knowing your species is really important. And Jen's going to be out here next week, and she's going to talk about invasive species and what you can do about them in your home, how you can identify them, and how you can work with getting rid of them, pulling them out and that sort of thing. And another species that I'd like to talk about is right here. This is Canna thistle. So it's not a very nice plant, it's very aggressive, it'll outcompete our native species, and it's a what do you call it, a colony former, so it's actually sending out rhizomes through the soil, and so you gradually get a bigger and bigger patch of it. And as you can see, it's got these nasty thorns on it, so it's not that comfortable working with. Usually we cut these off at the base, and then their nutrients are reduced, so if you do that repeatedly, it'll help manage them over time. But Jen's going to talk about that more next week. And so yeah, that's basically what we've got out here. We're managing this area for native species. We've got a beautiful area, a nice large area, so you can actually get a lot of different species in here. We've got a lot of seed source for the birds with all these different wildflowers. We've got a lot of habitat with the standing cover. We've got a lot of wildflowers in here, so we've got all this habitat for pollinators. So overall, everything is very harmonious here. So as I'm finishing up, it's like, are there any questions that I can answer? Let's see. What do we got here? How can we control thistle? Well, one of the methods that we're using to control thistle, Jen's going to talk about this a little more, but we're repeatedly cutting it off, so it depletes the nutrients in the roots, and gradually it'll succumb. So, and Katie's asking, what's involved in managing this existing meadow? Well, typically every 3 to 4 years we're cutting this down, and we're taking it right down to the ground so that we can expose that a little bit, and so that the seeds that are, all these seeds that are falling down, will actually have a place to germinate, because if it gets too much mulch on the ground, then it doesn't have a place to germinate. So what we're doing is every 3 or 4 years now, we're managing it with a mow. One of the questions is, how would a bird get the seeds out of those very slight stems without breaking the plant? Well, birds are actually very light. Their bones are actually hollow, so they actually don't weigh very much. And a lot of these species that are a little stouter, I don't know if you can see that, but this is a fairly stout plant, so the birds can actually climb onto this when they're growing, and they can pull out the seeds. And different species are more adapted to different species, because you get a little bit of like a finch growing, won't be trying to get onto something that's more robust, because the seeds are bigger and they can't handle them as much, whereas they can handle the smaller seeds, pulling them out of the wild bergamot or something like that. And the bigger birds like goldfinches and things like that can handle the big seeds, and they have the big jaws. That's part of Darwin's theory of evolution, is he was looking at the beaks on different birds and how they're so specially adapted for different species of plants and different seeds that they're opening. Let's see, is there anyone that comes to identify native species in the garden? Actually, we don't actually have anybody that comes out to homes right now to do that. But I think it's an interesting idea, and you're always welcome to come by the Meadoway. We always have crews out here working if you can find them. We're kind of moving around a lot. It's 16 kilometers. But if you find us, you can use the Corvid distancing, but just stay on the trail, and you can wave at us and just tell us that you have a question, and a lot of times we'll just shut down the machine and we'll walk over and we'll have a conversation with you. That's not a problem. I think I'm out of time now. I'd like to talk more, but I'm going to answer more questions offline once we're done. And I just wanted to thank everybody. Remember, Jen's going to be out here next Thursday at 2 o'clock talking more about invasive species. And I just wanted to thank everybody. Just come out when the time is right. You can come out here and really enjoy this prairie, this meadow. So thank you very much. Take care.